On today's episode, we have a 24-year-old kid who's built a $10 million a year business productizing content creation using ChatGPT.
And we're also covering a 24-year-old founder who's raised $35 million to disrupt how Americans access their 401k. Hey everybody, this is episode 15 of the Our Future podcast. I'm your host, Simran, Sandhu, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Sikand. We're two guys in our early 20s who sold our media company to a major media conglomerate, and now we give you the tactics that young entrepreneurs are using to win in business.
The next entrepreneur we're covering is Anirudh Singla. This guy was 17 years old in India when he realized there was a massive opportunity for every company to become a content company, to help lower their cost of acquisition and just become more effective marketers. So he actually got his start on Upwork. So here he is, a teenager, again, in India. There's a big services economy there for American companies overseas and for companies in India and around the world. And he had always had a good knowledge of writing. So that was the service he was pitching himself on these platforms like Upwork and Fiverr to say, hey, let me help your company write articles on various topics so you can rank on SEO and then drive some organic customer inbound, right? And he's doing this over and over again. And then he decides to take it a step further, which is, okay, well, I can't physically write every article. Let me kind of create an arbitrage here, an agency where I will develop the relationships with companies, and then I'll pair them with subject matter experts, writers. Now his platform, which is called Pepper, is doing $10 million of annual recurring revenue. It's a software company that's essentially productized the process of companies writing articles and ranking for SEO through organic traffic. And it's pretty impressive what this kid's built, an end-to-end platform for content creation, specifically in the blogging space right now, but expanding to more types of content here in the future. And AI has been a big part of it, and it's an awesome story.
Yeah, I think he has a really strong thesis. Every company is going to be a media company. And I know when you hear that, it's probably like one of those things where it's like, okay, you're just shilling your own book. Clearly you have an agenda. Yeah. But it's true, right? Like, how much do these consumer-facing companies spend in marketing on a yearly basis? How much do all of these software companies spend on a marketing basis? What we've realized at this point is that it's best if you can own your own distribution. I mean, that's something you and I learned building Our Future. That's something that, regardless of what industry you're in, if you can start thinking about that early and proactively, you're just going to put yourself in a better spot for the future. So that was his guiding thesis. The next part of this is he found an arbitrage, which was he could use Indian talent, which was overseas. It's cheaper. He himself understood that really well. I mean, he grew up in India, moved to Mumbai, which is kind of the New York of India, and was able to use that pay scale and eventually sell to American companies. So his cost profile is extremely sexy. I'm excited to talk more about that too.
Right. And essentially, once he tapped into the American market, he was able to charge much higher rates for the same kind of content that he was already doing for Indian companies. So he perfected the model in his home country and then just took it to kind of the higher margin companies out there. In terms of every company is going to be a content company. Again, like you said, I think a little bit overplayed, but definitely a necessity. And when you think about content for B2B companies, right? For the longest time, these companies have lived off of organic search queries and paid search queries, right? So when you want to solve a problem with your business, you're probably going to Google search. I would assume that for B2B advertising and customer acquisition, Google search and keywords are by far the largest acquisition source. I don't think anyone would refute that, right? It's okay, how do a content management system or something, or how do I collaborate with team members on X or Y, right? And immediately you'll get Monday.com, right? So he looked at, okay, B2B companies have this very specific need to not only pay for keywords on Google and advertise on Google, but also to rank organically, right? Because Google, they give a few sponsored things, right? Links, it's a different shade of blue. And then it's the regular content that you'd probably be most likely to get value from. And we've seen lots of companies win at the strategy like HubSpot, where they put out an article 5 best tools to do this, or
Totally. Just
how to
really
create
relevant content.
yeah, how to create a social media calendar. And then that brings the user to their website and then explore their suite of products. So definitely a fascinating take. And he did focus on the marketing channel most relevant for B2B companies, which again have really high cost of customer acquisition and therefore can pay a lot to people who can get them leads. So he definitely built the right kind of content ecosystem for the right profile of company, given that his focus is on written content.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things too where you can find these freelancers on an Upwork or a Fiverr, but there's so many different components that he had to figure out to build this business, his company Pepper. Because really when he describes this business, he describes it as Uber for content. So again, it's connecting these really talented content creators, whether it's across, an ebook, it's use cases, it's, blogs, and they're subject matter experts in a very niche technical space. So, what's interesting is that, say you're working with a ghostwriting agency, usually it's very generalized. So you may have the same writer who's also writing for a fintech company, also writing for a healthcare company. And it's like they don't really understand the technicalities of that. So if we can actually take Jim, the social media manager at X specific company, and have him write for other companies in that industry, that is so much better than trying to teach some other guy who just knows how to game the algorithm.
Yeah, I think they got the subject matter expert thing right. They also, I think the main value though is like the platform itself, right? Like it's end to end. It's Google Docs for companies creating organic content. So in his platform, you can pick a type of content. So like blog post, website copy, whatever it is, you pick it, it templatizes it. It has its own like proprietary version of Google Docs.
Yeah.
Then it comes up with ideas. You can hire your freelancer to write the content. Once they write it, you can edit it in the platform. You can invite your team members to look and collaborate on it. And then with one click, you can, for one, check SEO and make sure it's optimized for discovery on the web, and then just publish it out to all the different sites and blogs. But I want to mention one thing, which is, don't you think this whole like companies blogging type acquisition strategy is a little bit old now? Like it's not really the main way we think about content. Obviously like that was a good strategy for HubSpot, but I feel like it's more or less a thing of the past. Like I think writing on LinkedIn and writing on Twitter and doing short form video and YouTube content is way more what we think about for companies becoming media companies and content companies. I don't think writing blogs and articles is really in vogue anymore. What do you think?
I think it's really effective still because maybe you're not searching out blogs specifically, but I think companies have gotten a lot smarter on how they're packaging them and where they're including them. So like, let's take HubSpot, for example. What they do with these blogs now is they're shilling related topics around, social media or like CRM and sales. And they're just plugging it in the Hustle. So if you read the Hustle, that newsletter, there's going to be, hey, here's, 10 tips on what you should do in the workplace or whatever. And you click in it and it takes you to a blog they created. So, they found different ways to kind of make it cooler. And sometimes it is a value. I've clicked on a few of them where it's like, download this template that you can use for your own company and your own employees. And they've actually been pretty useful. I don't think you can just provide garbage out there. Like it does have to add value or people are just going to stop clicking into them. But maybe they're not proactively searching out blogs. So you got to get a little creative on how you're actually getting people to click into them.
Yeah, well, you know how marketing strategies just kind of ebb and flow over time? It's like one day this is hot, one day this is the next. Sometimes you return to an old marketing tactic that people kind of moved away from, and then you're like, oh my God, it still works. Or
what's
like
old is new and what's new is old. It's one of those things for sure.
Yeah, like maybe this article thing is tried and true. And I think the big difference with articles and blogs for companies, and probably why he selected the best beachhead for getting into the content ecosystem overall, is for one, the analytics on blogs are way better than a TikTok. Because again, there's a lot more visibility into data if it's your site. So you're kind of owning the audience there with the article. The next thing is that, again, like it's for B2B, like you can see a purchasing behavior, right? Just like the analytics. So he picked the right content format. His big challenge now is going to be expanding into like other publishing sites and platforms and content styles. But in terms of what generates the most revenue in a way that can be productized. The blogging system of creating 250 articles for this specific keyword and having someone who knows that industry do it was a great way for him to start. So he now has 2,500 customers in total. 300 of them are paying a subscription. And when he thinks about pricing, he thinks about essentially just competing with a full-time hire. So like, $100,000 a year to get someone good. And he's doing, he's charging probably, I would assume, $7,500 to $10,000 a month to these clients. And he works with big companies, DoorDash, Amazon, Airbnb. Like it's really impressive the roster he's got.
Yeah,
there.
I saw McKinsey on the website too.
Yeah.
But he's going to win off of volume, right? It's like you're going to spend $100,000 on a marketing person, and they can generate 4 to 5 creative assets a week. We can do 5x that, on our platform. And if you think about what any business is looking for from a content standpoint, like why are they even working with agencies? It comes down to 4 things, right? First thing that they're going to look for is they're looking for strategy and advice. What is it that we should do? What is our content strategy? Next is, can you help us actually go create the content? So the content creation process. Okay, great. Once that content is created, what does the distribution look like? What platforms are we going to be on? What are the analytics? How else can we amplify what it is we're putting out? And then the last piece is, how do we measure the ROI? What is the analytics capability? So I think the way he's thinking about it is, can I build a full suite platform where I can encompass all 4 of these vectors or angles to create the go-to experience
the ultimate
for any
agency.
big business?
He's building the ultimate agency. He wants to put everybody in content agencies out of business, right? Because he can do it with more data, he can do it more seamlessly, he can do it cheaper, and he can give the company more control over everything and make it more transparent. So, what he's done, and we talk about this all the time, agencies, are great first businesses for young people to start, but they're notoriously hard to productize. He actually did it. He took a blog writing agency, and many of them exist, and productized it, and has built a $10 million a year company. Wherein, it's a scalable software. So his vision again is an end-to-end software platform that is fully scalable and fully self-service. So you don't need to worry about, as an agency owner, taking in this much spend, doing this margin, whatever. It's just the software platform is the agency, and he's made it more connective and, I guess, relevant through a bunch of AI features. So he showed me a photo of him and Sam Altman, way back, right? And I guess he was part of that early wave of companies that understood ChatGPT. And he and Jasper and Writer, right? They all
they were one
of
the first 3 companies. Yeah.
And I don't know how different he is from Jasper and Writer. I mean, I think they might just be more broad, just coming up with ideas for any kind of written content. He's specifically focused on this marketing strategy of creating articles, ranking SEO, and getting organic leads, right?
Yeah, I think AI is an accelerant, right? He's found how to tap into that. And from what I've heard, it doesn't seem like Jasper is in a really good spot. I know the CEO just stepped down. They're bringing in someone new. And, I think they were buzzy for a while because they raised $100 million at $1 billion valuation. But if you look at what Anirudh is doing, what's great about it is he's doing $10 million in revenue, and he's burning maybe 30 to 40K a month. Isn't that crazy? I thought that was wild. I was like, how can these other people afford to compete with him when, his cost profile is so huge? And in this case, the industry metric is also really interesting because the way that you measure cost in this specific industry or how you price it out is you're charging 15 cents per word. That is the industry benchmark. Anirudh is charging $2 a word, and he's getting away with it because, again, he's selling to B2B companies. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, did you hear how he slashed it originally and then hiked it back up once he had built a case studies and a platform?
0.05 cents? That was crazy.
Yeah, he said he did it for 0.05 cents, and he was just grinding every day. He moved into his uncle's basement with his boys, and they were just grinding all night. They'd sleep for 3 hours. They were just writing articles, bro. They were human typewriters down there, Mumbai sweatshop vibes. And they quite literally just grinded it out. And once they had enough case studies and content, they realized, well, we can just go to American companies and charge way more, right? And this is what I think is so slick about this cat, right? Thick Indian accent, right? Like, like nerdy, kind of chubby looking guy. But like, bro's a savant. Like, you look at his website, you would not think that's a company based in India. Not for a second.
Yeah.
The design is phenomenal. The words, they're not a single grammar error, right? Maybe speaks to the fact that it's a writing platform, but it looks like a San Francisco-based company, and he is in the U.S. now. But he's got the cost profile behind the scenes, but everything is so rosy on the surface,
Totally.
It looks good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I also think when you look at the future of content, a lot of companies are just building these wrappers on top of ChatGPT or it's some AI play. But I do think you're going to need humans and AI. Like, I don't actually believe that just AI solutions are going to work by themselves. I mean, we get pitched on video AI companies all the time, and they're all pretty bad. Like, I wouldn't trade what we have for any of them. But I do think if it's one of those things where perhaps, you're feeding in the first 0 to 10% of information where it's like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is what I want it to achieve. The AI helps you take it from 10 to 95%. And then you take it from 95 to 100 and you add in your tweaks and you add in that specialization that can make you different. I think that if companies are just dependent on AI solutions and content by themselves, like, you're probably going to get stuck. I don't see a company like that doing well in marketing, especially if everyone's doing that. It's like, how can you add your own flair to it? I think that's still going to be very important. And just to close it up here, one other thing that I admire about Anirudh and how he's building this business is it's not a 2-year, 3-year play for him. I mean, he's been building this business for 6 years. And when you were talking with him, I get the sense that he's thinking about this in a several decades play. Like, he wants to truly build a monster in this industry. And when you think about it through that lens, the kind of decisions that you make are going to be way, way different, right? Just from the time frame. If you're looking at, hey, am I going to build a business and try to sell it in 2 to 3 years, or am I going to try and stay for 10 years? I think most people are trying to go to the 2 to 3 year mark. That's what we did. But I think if you look at it from a 10-year lens, you're going to actually make better strategic decisions. You're going to be much more cognizant about, like, your health choices, right? You're not going to pull as many all-nighters because you realize that this is a marathon and not a sprint. And so I think if you find yourself in those moments where maybe it feels like the walls are caving in and you're getting crushed, back out and think kind of in the broader perspective, which is, you don't have to rush. You can think about this as a longer play and give yourself some breathing room, because I think you'll make better decisions because of it.
Yeah, I mean, as long as your business isn't going to fail by you not doing something on that day, you can leave it to the next day. I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into. And yeah, I think you're right. When you have that pressure to succeed in a small time window, you're also looking for these strategies that drive the most growth. And then when those dry up, or it's a zero interest rate phenomenon, or interest rates change, you're shit out of luck. And that's a lot of these venture companies now,
That's so true, dude.
Yeah. Like you go down these rabbit holes that you think are going to get you to, like, the revenue number that's going to get you the right multiple for your exit. And then that revenue dries up because it was low quality. And that's like, you were trying to just grab it off the table. You think that you're building fast and you're going as hard as you can, but really you're just reaching for low-hanging fruits that don't have much moat or protection or quality to those business lines.
I guess for our next story, someone else who's got a long-term mindset and I think can crush it in their industries. It's a 24-year-old named Sheridan Clayborne. He's co-founded a company called LendTable alongside his co-founder, Mitchell Jones. So they've raised $35 million, and it was built around this key insight, which was that most people have a 401k match that their employer is offering, but people aren't actually utilizing it because what they value is the instant liquidity. They want the extra several $100s a month rather than putting that money away into their retirement and letting it compound over the long term. And so he approached it in a really innovative way, which was, what if we gave them that instant liquidity? So we give them the share of what their 401k contribution would be, and then we just take a 20% cut on the backside. So something else I really like about Sheridan is he's kind of a born winner. At 15 years old, he built a sneaker bot company, multi-million-dollar company, and they're selling sneakers, they're selling tickets, scaled it to $20 million in revenue. at that time, he goes to college, he's interning at JP Morgan, at Goldman as a quant, like really technical roles. And that's how he was exposed to the fintech and investing space. And while talking to, people there, it was there that he realized that even these people in high income jobs weren't using their 401k match. And that was just crazy to him, right? And that's so fair. I honestly didn't realize that the utilization rates were this low. Like, this is free money that your employer is giving. So he found a way to tap into that arbitrage. And now he's built a really compelling business with tens of thousands of users.
Yeah, I mean, Sheridan, child prodigy, one thing I throw in there is that he was like the youngest person to ever attend Northwestern University, I think at age 15. So really incredible.
That's crazy. He was 15 years old.
Yeah, pretty insane. But yeah, just like you said, right? Even high net worth people aren't educated, but really who's really struggling is like the average American, right? Like, so that's what LendTable targets is the employee working at Walmart who should be contributing to their 401k because Walmart will match all of it. And they can't because they have to put, an extra 3 meals on the table, or extra, an extra bus, expense or fix my car, right? So it's like people just can't afford to give up those few extra hundreds of dollars. Like most Americans don't even have $500 for an emergency. So
right.
He's solving a really, really big problem. And I think the genius behind what he's doing is this exists. Like this is guaranteed to you. You just need to figure out a way to let someone get the short-term benefit and also the long-term benefit, right? And, this is a process that's existed for years. The U.S. government wants people to save for retirement. Like, there's a reason these tax-free accounts exist. But it's just, it comes at a cost, right? Preparing for the future always comes at a cost. And he's mitigating that cost pretty heavily. For people who can't bear the brunt of it in the short term.
I think another genius aspect of this idea is I love when businesses are built around money that a business has to spend.
Yeah.
And one example of that is like what he's doing with employee benefits. If you're a certain size company, you're going to have to provide these benefits. You're going to have to spend a certain kind of money, right, for your employees. And so if it's already budgeted or allocated for it, and you can just tap into that in some capacity, you can build a winner of a company. Another genius strategy I've heard from other agency owners or people who've built SaaS-style companies is they will literally study the income statement for some of these companies and find out where are their biggest expense sources. And then around that, they will go build a business and try to sell. Because it's way easier to convince a company when they're already spending money on something and saying, hey, we have a better solution, rather than trying to get them to spend money on something they haven't budgeted or forecasted for. So kind of a genius tactic here, but I love this employee benefits model. So he's found a way to tap into that and offer instant liquidity. So I think it's true, right? Like if I'm a lower income worker and this $300 can make a huge difference for my life, like I'm going to take that. Like who cares about when I'm 60 years old? Like I have problems today that I need to solve for. So that's the genius in this. Do you want to talk a little bit more about their business model and how they're making money?
Yeah, absolutely. So what they do is essentially whatever you'd be deducted from your paycheck to make your 401k match, right? They will give you, right? They'll lend to you every month. And then at the end of the year, they take 20% of like the entire 401k amount plus whatever they lent you. And then they also charge a $15 a month subscription or something along those $10 a month subscription to people. So multi-pronged business model, a strong business model, but they have a big challenge in that liquidity around 401ks is massively hard in that you get a tax penalty for withdrawing from the 401k early. So if you do it, if you're withdrawing from your 401k at the end of the year to pay out LendTable, you're taking a tax hit. But the way he describes it is you wouldn't have had that money in the first place anyway. So while it appears to be a harsh hit, it's not. But yeah, he's had challenges trying to, really like reap the money back out of the model. But it is a good business model on its head, right? Which is, 20%. And like, I think the genius behind it is like, he can pitch it like we're taking 20% of what your company gave. So you're giving $5K a year from your paycheck. Your company's giving $5K. We're taking 20. We're going to take, with 20%, that's $2,000. We're going to take, $2,000 of the $5,000 your company gave. We're not taking from what you gave. So it's just like, it's actually insane that
$1,000 of the $5,000,
Yeah.
right? If it's 20%.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's literally like insane that companies just double whatever you put in. Like it's a magical like money situation, right? Like
I think it's also capped too, right? Like I think it's they will match up to a certain point. So it's like $6,000 or whatever that they're going to match up to a year. But yeah, it's free money. Another person who's building a really compelling business around employee benefits is this guy named Justin Mares. So he's the founder of a company called TrueMed, and he's enabling you to take HSA and FSA money that an employer gives you, and it enables you to use that for like health and wellness related transactions. So like buying a Peloton or like health and wellness products. It's the same kind of business model, but just in a different space. And I think that's another like key tactic or strategy people should take from this is like, if you think this is a cool idea, there's so many different other kinds of benefits that a company is like providing. Like go find your arbitrage in this space and go build something around it.
Well,
like,
we were ideating.
Yeah.
Even me and you were ideating in the space just a few days or weeks ago, right? Talking about because this is already earmarked, it's so much easier to manage for companies. So I think, a lot of people, there's just too much out there. Like there's a lot of options and there's a lot of shit your company gives you, but it's like, it requires education and effort to actually tap into them. And I think whenever you can let something run on autopilot for people, help them save money, help them have a better life, somehow do the hard work of helping them understand their benefits, and like, you're going to have a winner, right? It takes a lot of energy to figure out what your company's benefits are and learn each thing and read the policies, right? So a lot of value in that too for the consumer.
One thing that wasn't clear to me, and perhaps you would know the answer to, is do you know if they're marketing this to the employees of the company or if they're going to the companies themselves?
It's mainly
and
direct,
offering this option.
It's mainly direct to consumer, and my hunch is they haven't been able to do B2B because it's very difficult to get relationships, and there's probably competitors of some kind in the space.
Right.
So it's mainly been direct to consumer. Like they've literally used Instagram. Like one growth tactic they talked about was they just walked into a Walmart and tried to sign up like people like, yo, what's up? Like get on my 401k plan. Like it's kind of a strange cold open, to be honest.
It's also tough too, because there's so much education that's missing around this. I think probably a lot of their investor pushback was around the fact like, hey, it's not that people don't want to like use this employer match. It's just that they don't really know that it's even an option. And so that's what they had to disprove is like, no, they know it's an option. It's just that the liquidity is the bigger issue. It's like, even if they know it's a benefit offered to them, like they have other pressing needs, and like their life is better spent, or their life is better suited if they can just get the few extra $100 up front.
Yeah, exactly. There's also a big challenge you talked about with like people who bounce around different service jobs. Like they leave behind 401ks. There's this huge market of like unclaimed 401ks that are just sitting there. It's like gift cards, right? Like they're valid, but like you don't use them. It's like breakage, right? So he also has a tool to go and trace back an employee's history and figure out where their money is and try and tie it back up all together in one. I think that's a big issue. Like, I mean, are you able to still access your Lilly 401k?
Yeah, I had to like jump through a bunch of hoops to get it. I mean, I knew I had one.
And did you transfer it? Did you transfer it to the system Morning Brew uses now?
No, I transferred it to like a SoFi account. So it's
SoFi
like
account.
I
so
was
now you
able
have
to
two
recover
401k.
the funds.
You have two 401k
Exactly.
accounts. You were able to
they
recover the
didn't-
funds, and then it's still treated like a 401k. Like you still get a tax penalty if you access it at a certain date, whatever.
That's correct.
So
I'm just not actively contributing to it.
Because you can't, right? Like when you move jobs, essentially like corporate jobs, you have to essentially leave behind the other 401k, and you can still claim it, but that's just going to be a separate account now. So you're not going to see it all in one unified platform. One smart business idea, right? Like I probably exists, but like for someone who's most people work at a company for 1, 2, 3 years and leave, especially in the corporate world, like, white collar jobs.
Dude, people are leaving like crazy. Yeah, the length or the duration they stay at these companies, it can't be more than like 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it would be a good product to do a dashboard that integrates with all the different HR platforms and 401k platforms and just shows you what your total 401k balance is, right? Like that could be a good product idea. There's probably a lot of stuff still. There's probably a lot of innovation that can still happen in this employee benefit space, right? Because again, it just takes a lot of education and bullshit and jumping through hoops to really access like these things. And I just think again, like a lot of education. Like I hired financial advisors and like they weren't really focused on the benefit side, but they looked at Morning Brew's policies for me. They looked at all that stuff. It helped me explain stuff to me. It helped a lot because I like, what can I use an HSA on? You know what I mean? Like how much is that going to deduct from my paycheck? Stuff like that. It's stuff that most people just don't really know.
Well, the tough thing too is like when you join a new company, there's like almost like a timeline that you have to adhere to. It's like you have to accept or like submit for like certain kind of benefits, and you have like 2 weeks to do it. And so it's like, you're being thrown in all this other bullshit when you start a new job. Like the last thing you want to do is like read really technical shit related to like your benefits. So like, yeah, probably people, especially if this is like their first or second job out of college, probably miss out on a lot of that stuff. And it's like, damn, like, it's already like, it would feel like a lot of like loss aversion. It's like, well, this is crazy. Like this is free benefits that I could have tapped into and I like just didn't out of laziness or
free
like,
business,
not knowing.
Free business idea. Create like an LLM chatbot for a company, program the chatbot to know everything about the company's benefits policies, and then just and then employees can ask any question they ever need to figure out what they can expense and what they can't.
Yeah.
B2B business model.
That's totally a cool idea. For sure.
Totally in line with the space.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Because it knows everything about the policies. So nice.
Yeah. No, I think it's a smart idea. Another kind of compelling product that he's building within this is around the employee stock purchase plan. So the way that this works is that you can essentially give up or relinquish a certain percentage of your salary in exchange for purchasing a company's stock at a discount. So let's use Tesla for this example. Say, in theory, you could give up 15% of your salary, but you can get Tesla shares. You can get Tesla shares at a 15% discount, right? So you can kind of buy into the company, but it's great because there's a look back period involved. So you can lock in at the lowest share price. And like, so if Tesla was selling at 340 earlier this year and now it's at 420, you can lock in at 340, which is super cool. And then ultimately you could sell that at like a much higher premium. And in theory, like in this, equation, you could probably sell for like a 30, 40, 50K profit. So he's also introducing these kind of capabilities within LendTable. So again, it's going to be a full suite product where like you can kind of take advantage of every single 401k related benefit or like incentive within, this specific niche of the employee benefits program.
Yeah.
Another reoccurring theme in all of this is like, you talked about the competitors that he had or like people also approaching this. When Sheridan was telling us about like the competitors, both of them highly capitalized, like Stanford founders or like very like on paper, really talented people or really educated. They're both defunct. And so, it's like one of those reaffirming things that like, just because someone may have like some crazy cool background and they have like, maybe a lot of capital at their disposal, like as long as you stay scrappy and you're willing to just like outwork and like really just use as much grit as possible, you can still beat them. And like also at the same time, like there's probably a lot of shiny objects. This is like also a recurring theme in the show where, again, like us chatting right now, we've already found several different use cases for how you can tackle benefits.
Yeah.
And like, I think that is probably like an under-noticed like weakness of being a really talented or smart person, because you're trying to do too many different things all at once. It's like, oh, there's an opportunity. Oh, there's an opportunity. I need to jump on this. Like, we need to get ahead of that. And that ultimately ends up being like at your own demise or like at your own downfall. So stay focused, be like very intent, thinking along, time horizon, and, give it the best you can and like see what comes out of that. I would say that's kind of like my 2 cents takeaways for Sheridan Clayborne and the folks at LendTable.
Well, I think that was an awesome way to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of our future podcast. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We'll be with you next Wednesday. Appreciate you, everybody. Peace.
Stay frosty.